In the 6th year of our relationship, my girlfriend, Chloe, still had no intention of getting married. Fueled by liquid courage, I joked, "If you still say no after my 100th proposal, we're breaking up." She brushed off the 99th proposal like it was nothing. For the final proposal, it happened to be a mutual friend's birthday. I rushed to the private room she was in, pushed open the door and asked, "Will you marry me or not?" Only to find her leaning into the arms of a young, handsome college student. The room plunged into an awkward, dead silence. But Chloe acted as if nothing was wrong, brazenly nonchalant. I got up. "It's Jessica's birthday. I don't want to make a scene. I'm going to the restroom." As the door closed, I could hear the conversation start up again. "Chloe, Ethan's here. Didn't I give you a heads up? Why would you still bring this guy?" Another friend chimed in. "Seriously, Chloe, you've gone too far this time. It doesn't matter." Chloe casually moved out of the man's embrace and poured herself a drink, a playful smile on her face, looking like a carefree socialite who treated life as a game. The door clicked shut before I could hear anything else. I calmly used the restroom. As I washed my hands, I stared at my reflection in the mirror and gave a sudden, sharp twist of my lips. Pathetic. What a pathetic way to live. I took a deep breath, my decision made. But when I returned to the room and pushed the door open, the scene inside made me grip the doorknob so hard my knuckles turned white, my composure nearly shattering. Chloe was pressing her lips against the college kids, a thin napkin between them already damp. The crowd erupted in laughter and cheers. "Leave it to Chloe to know how to party," someone yelled. "They're touching. The mood is perfect. Just give everyone a real kiss." My hand on the doorknob trembled. This was the woman I had loved for 6 years. In that moment, all I felt was a bitter, biting irony. "Hey, stop messing around," someone whispered, nodding toward the doorway. All heads turned to look at me. "Ethan, you're back," Jessica said quickly. "We were just playing a game. Don't take it seriously." But Chloe cut her off, her gaze cool and direct. "Ethan, since you're here, we might as well be clear. This back and forth over the years has gotten tiresome. Things between us have been over for a long time." I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms, but I couldn't feel the pain. 6 years of my life, all summed up in a single, dismissive phrase. "Things have faded. Caleb is much more interesting than you," she continued, gesturing to the student. "Being with him is what I actually want." I nodded, numb. "Okay, even though we're breaking up, we can still be friends," she offered magnanimously. "If you ever run into trouble in New York, you can still call me." "That won't be necessary," I said, forcing a faint smile. "Since it's over, let's make it a clean break. It's only fair to your new guy." Chloe raised an eyebrow, a flicker of surprise in her eyes. I turned to the birthday girl, Jessica. "Happy birthday. Everyone have a good time. I'm heading out." I peeled those oranges on the table. "You guys should eat them. Don't let them go to waste." Chloe didn't like fruit, with the sole exception of oranges. But she was incredibly picky, refusing to eat a single segment until every last bit of the white pith was removed. For years, just to make sure she got her daily vitamins, I had peeled them, meticulously removed the pith, and arranged the segments on a plate for her. On good days, she'd wrap her arms around me and coo, "My boyfriend is the best. Are you trying to wife me up?" She always knew what I wanted, but she never offered to give it. "Chloe, look what you've done," I heard Jessica say as I left. "I think Ethan is really angry this time." "He'll get over it," Chloe replied dismissively. "Exactly. How many times have they had this fight? And every single time, Ethan comes crawling back in a few days, acting like nothing happened at the next party." "I'll give it 5 days," someone else laughed. "I'll bet 6. Chloe glanced at the door I'd left ajar, a cold smile playing on her lips. "I'll bet 3 hours. He'll be back." "Well, that's a surefire bet," a friend cackled. "The whole world knows Ethan Miller is absolutely crazy about Chloe Vanderbilt." It was after midnight when I got back to the townhouse. It only took me half an hour to pack. After living there for 3 years, everything I considered mine fit into a single small suitcase. I didn't touch any of the expensive watches or rings she'd bought me. The only thing I regretted leaving was the wall of academic books, but the knowledge was already in my head, so the physical copies didn't matter as much. My eyes fell on the nightstand. I walked over, pulled open the drawer, and there it was, a check for $5 million. Beneath it was a document, the deed to a condo. It was outside the city, but it was still worth at least another $5 million, conservatively. Chloe had already signed both. She'd thrown them at me during a fight months ago, and they'd been sitting in this drawer ever since. She was sure I'd never take them because accepting them meant it was truly, completely over. $10 million for 6 years of my life. Suddenly, it didn't seem like such a bad deal. Most people don't make that in a lifetime. I put both the check and the deed into my bag. She offered. Why shouldn't I take them? The love was gone, but at least there was the money. Hello, is this a cleaning service? Do you take last-minute jobs? Yes, a full deep clean. I'll pay extra. I left my key on the console table by the door, got into a cab, and headed straight for my best friend's apartment. On the way, the head of the cleaning crew called to confirm. Sir, are you sure you want us to throw all of this out? Do whatever you want with it, I said, and hung up. It was the dead of night when Chloe finally got home, long after the cleaners had gone. She collapsed onto the sofa, intending to just rest for a moment, and immediately fell asleep. She woke the next morning to the familiar sound of dishes clinking in the kitchen. She pushed the throw blanket off, sat up, and rubbed her temples, reaching blindly for the glass of water I always left for her. Her hand met empty air. Her hand hovered over the coffee table for a second before a smirk touched her lips. So he was back. He'd even covered her with a blanket. But no hangover tea. He was still playing these little games of petty resistance after all these years. Hadn't he gotten tired of it? Chloe got to her feet. You'd better have a good. Ma'am, you're awake, a new voice said. Breakfast will be ready in 2 minutes if you'd like to wash up. By the way, I hope you weren't cold? I turned up the heat and added an extra blanket just in case. Chloe fell silent. At the breakfast table, she asked the new housekeeper, where's the special porridge? Oh, the one for your sensitive stomach? I'm afraid I didn't have time to make that, ma'am. That requires soaking the grains overnight and simmering them for hours first thing in the morning. The heat has to be just right. I don't have the patience Mr. Miller did, watching the pot constantly. Even if I tried, it wouldn't taste the same. Also, the housekeeper began, but Chloe cut her off. Just get me the chili crisp. Right away, ma'am. A moment later, Chloe frowned. This tastes different. She glanced at the jar. And the label is wrong. The other jar was empty, ma'am. This was all I could find. I can pick up more from the store later. You won't find it in any store, the housekeeper said with an awkward smile. Mr. Miller made that himself. I wouldn't know how. I've lost my appetite. Ma'am, you're not going to eat? No. The housekeeper watched her retreating back, completely baffled. Why the sudden bad mood? Ethan, time to get up, my friend Liam called out. I rolled over without opening my eyes. Leave me alone. Let me sleep. Liam, already dressed for work, scoffed. It's almost 8. Don't you have to get back to make breakfast for Her Highness? Chloe Vanderbilt. I'd crashed at his place before, but I'd always had to leave before dawn to get back and make that special porridge for Chloe's sensitive stomach. Liam had always hated it. Is Chloe disabled? Can't she just order something on her phone? You've spoiled her rotten. That's the problem. Half asleep, I just waved a hand. Not going back. We broke up. Oh yeah? For how many days this time? He said skeptically. Well, sleep in then. Breakfast is on the table. I'm heading to work. I've got a date tonight, so don't worry about dinner for me. Then again, you'll probably be gone by then anyway. Just close the patio door on your way out. Hunger was what finally woke me up. Eating the breakfast Liam had left out and watching the bright sun stream through the window, I couldn't remember the last time I'd slept in this late. I ate my breakfast for lunch, changed my clothes, and headed straight for the bank. First things first, I cashed the $5 million check. Money in the bank was money I could count on. Walking out of that building, I was suddenly a man with a multi-million-dollar portfolio. This breakup was turning out to be quite profitable. After that, I got a haircut, chopping off the longer style Chloe preferred. I changed into a simple t-shirt and jeans and walked through the city, feeling lighter than I had in years. I found myself outside the gates of Columbia University, watching students on bikes ride in and out as the sun began to set, and I just stood there, lost in thought. Just then, 2 girls hurried past me. Come on, we have to get to Mount Sinai to visit Professor Grant. My focus sharpened. The fiery old professor who'd rap you on the head with her knuckles when you frustrated her was sick? Was it serious? Back at Liam's, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease. I opened my contacts and scrolled to the entry I'd nicknamed The Old Tyrant. I hovered over the call button for a long time, but I just couldn't bring myself to press it. For Chloe, for what I thought was love, I'd thrown away a guaranteed spot in Columbia's fast-track PhD program. I hadn't worked a single day since graduation, turning myself into a stay-at-home boyfriend who revolved entirely around her. Professor Grant must have been beyond disappointed in me. Ethan, you're still here, Liam said, surprised, as he came through the door that evening. Wow, this must be a new record. I think the last time you two broke up, you didn't even last 30 minutes before she called and you went running back. I made soup. Help yourself. Liam's eyes lit up. He rushed into the kitchen, and a moment later I heard him sigh contentedly. Man, Chloe doesn't know how good she has it, getting to eat your cooking every day. Just clean up after yourself when you're done. I'm turning in. So you're really not going back? He called after me. The only answer he got was the sound of my bedroom door closing. Liam clicked his tongue. Ha! Maybe this time is different. Under that same night sky, in her Riverside townhouse, Chloe was on the phone. Ms. Vanderbilt, we've confirmed with the bank. Mr. Miller came in person to cash the $5 million check. It was processed at 12:05 this afternoon. Chloe hung up, her eyes cold as she stared out at the city lights. Ethan, what new game are you playing? If you think this little stunt is going to make me come running back, you are sorely mistaken. When Chloe Vanderbilt made a decision, she never backed down. Half an hour later, she walked into a private lounge. Jessica greeted her at the door. Chloe, everyone's here, we were just waiting for you. What's your poison tonight? As Chloe walked past, Jessica stayed put, peering behind her. Where's Ethan? He's parking, Chloe said automatically. Then her expression soured. Is he having trouble finding a spot? I should go help. Noticing Chloe's dark expression, Jessica finally caught on. Ahem. Chloe, don't tell me Ethan isn't back yet? It's been way more than 3 hours. Chloe threw up her hands in a shrug. Back from where? Did you think I was kidding about the breakup? With that, she brushed past Jessica and took a seat on the couch. Jessica looked stunned. No way, you're serious this time? But she quickly shook her head, dismissing the thought. She could believe Chloe would end things on a whim. But Ethan? Any other man on earth might walk away, but not Ethan Miller. That was a universally accepted fact in their social circle. Chloe, flying solo tonight? Another friend, Olivia, asked, clearly enjoying the drama. It's been a full day now. What happened to your 3-hour bet? A smirk played on Chloe's lips. Sabet. What's my punishment? Olivia's eyes gleamed. Let's switch it up. No shots. You have to call Ethan and say, in your sweetest, most sincere voice, I'm sorry. I was wrong. I love you. The group roared with laughter. Jessica snatched Chloe's phone and dialed my number for her. After a single ring, a recorded voice announced, the number you have dialed is not available at this time. Did he block you? The laughter in the room died down as everyone exchanged uncertain glances. Jessica quickly hung up and handed the phone back, trying to laugh it off. I'm sure it's just bad service. Ethan block you? That'll happen when pigs fly, right? Her laughter trailed off awkwardly. Olivia looked thoughtful. Maybe Ethan is serious this time. Chloe scoffed. Of course the breakup is serious. I'm not playing this game again. And from now on, if anyone brings up Ethan's name again, our friendship is over. Olivia's eyes narrowed. Just make sure you don't regret this, she said quietly. Chloe just smirked. She never had regrets. Another friend, seeing the tension, quickly jumped in. Hey, let's not get so serious. We're all friends here, right? The next morning at 7, I was already out the door with a thermal container before Liam even got back from his run. Inside Professor Grant's private room at Mount Sinai Hospital, a man's voice asked, "How are you feeling today?" Professor Grant put down the academic journal she was reading and adjusted her glasses. "Samuel, what are you doing here? And don't you dare help me sit up." Her colleague, Professor Samuel Morgan, ignored her and fluffed a pillow behind her back. "Your incision is still healing. It was just an appendectomy, a minor procedure. But when you get to be my age, you don't bounce back as quickly, so the doctors are keeping me hostage. Speaking of which, have the department's graduate student slots been assigned for this year?" "They have. You got 3, I got 4. 3, huh? So you're still planning on only taking 2? That's right. I'm getting old. 2 is my limit," she said. Professor Morgan rolled his eyes. It was obvious she was holding that 3rd spot for him, but she'd never admit it. Professor Grant waved a dismissive hand, but her lip trembled. A mind like his shouldn't be wasted. It just shouldn't. Why would he throw away a gift like that? "Evelyn, calm down," Professor Morgan urged. "Samuel, do you know what he told me the last time I saw him? He said he wanted love. Love. He absolutely broke my heart." Standing just outside the door, I felt my own hands begin to shake. "I'm so sorry, Professor. In the end, I couldn't find the courage to go inside. I left the thermal container at the nurse's station." "This is for Professor Grant," I said. "Could you please make sure she gets it? Thank you." Before the nurse could reply, I turned and fled, not stopping until I was outside, gasping for fresh air. But the suffocating weight of my guilt remained. "Ethan?" a voice called out. A bright, handsome young man walked toward me. It was Chloe's younger brother, Chris. "It really is you. What are you doing at the hospital? Shouldn't you be at home?" He glanced up at the building. "Chris," I managed, forcing a smile. "Hey, your eyes are all red," he noted. I didn't say anything, Did you and my sister have another fight? No. He clearly thought I was just being stubborn, and his eyes filled with pity. We'd always gotten along, Chris and I, but I was never going to be good enough for the Vanderbilts, especially not for his mother, who was obsessed with social standing. It must be exhausting being with my sister, huh? He said. She's got a temper. You just have to be patient with her. Actually, we broke. Before I could finish, he cut me off. Hey, I've actually got to run. Can't talk. He glanced at his watch and hurried into the building. He was here to see Professor Grant. His admission into the PhD program depended on this meeting. After a long night of drinking, the sky was already turning gray by the time Chloe's driver dropped her at the townhouse. She collapsed onto her bed, overwhelmed by exhaustion, but still forced herself up to take a quick shower. Now Ethan won't have anything to complain about, she thought hazily. The next time she opened her eyes, it was to a sharp, stabbing pain. She clutched her stomach as she struggled out of bed. My stomach hurts. The name died on her lips. Chloe's brow furrowed. He was really keeping it up this time, lasting longer than ever before. Fine, let's see how long his little tantrum lasts. But still, where were her pills? She searched the living room, tearing through every drawer and cabinet, but the first aid kit was nowhere to be found. She called the housekeeper. The stomach medication, ma'am? Yes, it's in the first aid kit. Chloe's temples pounded. She took a deep breath. And where is the first aid kit? In the drawer in the walk-in closet. There are several boxes. Mr. Miller said you often have stomach pain after a night of drinking, so he moved it there to make it easier for you to find. Chloe went to the closet and found the kit exactly where the housekeeper said it would be, stocked with 5 full boxes of her usual antacids. After taking a couple of pills, the pain subsided, and the tension in her body began to ease. She pushed the drawer shut, but then she froze. Her expensive watches were all there, but everything that belonged to Ethan, every single item, was gone. A glance at the corner confirmed it. One of the suitcases was missing. Chloe stood frozen in place as a sudden, hot wave of anger washed over her. Fine, just fine. This is what happens when you spoil a man. You give them an inch and they think they can run the whole show. Just then, she heard the front door open. She stormed downstairs. What are you doing here? Chris looked up from taking off his shoes, surprised. Who else would it be? Chloe slumped onto the sofa, completely uninterested. What do you want? The housekeeper said your stomach was bothering you. Mother sent me on a mission of mercy to check on her beloved daughter. Chris said, already heading for the kitchen. Plus, I haven't had lunch, so I figured I could grab a bite. One of the main reasons he'd always liked me was that I was an excellent cook. But 30 seconds later, he was back. Sis, the kitchen is completely empty. Where's Ethan? Is he not here today? This was wrong. Usually by this time, I would have had lunch ready and waiting for Chloe, and Chris could usually count on getting some too. Ethan, always Ethan. Chloe rubbed her temples, ignoring him. Chris emerged from the kitchen, looking disappointed. Is he sick or something? I saw him at the hospital yesterday, and he looked pretty pale. You saw him at the hospital? Chloe sat up a little straighter. Yeah, I went to Mount Sinai yesterday to see Professor Grant, and I ran into Ethan right outside the main entrance. And guess what? She gave me a spot in the PhD program. Chloe frowned. What was he doing at a hospital? You're asking me? If you don't know, how would I? Chloe didn't answer. Maybe he wasn't sick. Maybe he was just visiting someone. Then again, I didn't have any friends. My entire life revolved around her. Are you done? She asked flatly. If so, you can leave. I need to sleep. Chloe got up to show him the door. Seriously? You're really kicking me out? Fine, I'm going, Chris said, annoyed as he put on his shoes. But I have a message from Mom. You have a blind date tomorrow. 2 o'clock, the River Cafe. Don't be late. Chris made a face at her, retreating back before finally leaving. He was used to this. In his family's world, having a boyfriend like me didn't conflict with searching for a suitable husband from a good family. His sister had been on plenty of these dates over the years, mostly just going through the motions to keep their mother happy. After Chris left, Chloe went to her home office to deal with work. Years ago, she'd started her own company to escape her family's control. The first 3 years were brutal, and since she refused to take their money, I was the only one she had by her side. It was only in the last 2 years that her business had really taken off. Now that she was successful, her family had softened their stance, trying to get back in her good graces. Their attitude toward me had shifted from outright hostility to a sort of tacit, turn-a-blind-eye acceptance. By the time she finished her work, the sun had set and she was starving. She pulled out her phone and called Caleb. What are you up to? The line was noisy, and then she heard his hushed voice. Babe, sorry, I'm in class. I'll call you as soon as it's over. The way he called her babe made her skin crawl. "Fine, you're busy," she said, and hung up, tossing the phone aside. Half a minute later, it rang again. She ignored it and went back to her work. She didn't leave her office until her stomach started to ache with hunger. She'd already made plans with Jessica and their friends, so she changed her clothes and got ready to leave. Hearing the noise, the young man sitting on her doorstep jumped to his feet. He turned, a shy, clean-cut smile on his face. "Chloe, I knocked, but I guess you didn't hear. So I just waited." His eyes fell on the jacket draped over her arm. "Are you going out?" Instead of answering, Chloe just frowned. "How did you find my address?" Caleb looked a little sheepish. "I asked your friend, Olivia." Chloe stepped aside. "Come in." The smile returned to his face as he stepped inside, looking around the townhouse. "You didn't answer when I called back," he said, a note of complaint in his voice. "I was worried. Didn't you have class?" Chloe asked. "I skipped it. My girlfriend is more important." Chloe said nothing. Ethan would never have done that. Back when she was first pursuing me, I was a freshman with a packed schedule, but I never once skipped a class for her. It was only in my senior year, when my course load lightened, that I started making more time for her. "Babe, you haven't eaten, have you?" "I was thinking, do you know how to make that special porridge?" Chloe asked, the question seeming to come out of nowhere. "That porridge?" "No," he admitted, "but I could learn." After rejecting Caleb's not-so-subtle hints about staying the night, Chloe ate the takeout he'd brought, drove him back to his dorm, and then went to meet Jessica and her friends. While waiting at a red light, she glanced at her phone. She remembered what her brother had said about seeing me at the hospital. Even though they were broken up, they had been together for years. Even a normal friend would check in. She opened iMessage and typed a message. "Are you sick?" The response was an immediate delivery failure notification, marked with a red exclamation point. "What's wrong, Chloe?" Jessica asked, watching her friend drink sullenly. Chloe had been in a foul mood ever since she arrived, casting a pall over the party. "She just found out she's been blocked," Olivia, who knew everything, said with a smirk, adding fuel to the fire. Chloe's face grew even darker. She slammed her glass down on the table, her expression turning vicious. "I said not to talk about him. Are you deaf?" Olivia just shrugged and fell silent. The mood in the room shifted instantly. The music stopped. Everyone went quiet. Jessica choked on her drink. Was Ethan actually serious this time? Another friend, a little drunk, leaned over to Jessica. "So, is Ethan back yet?" she whispered. Jessica just shook her head, not daring to say more. "I don't know," she mumbled. The friend got the message. He wasn't back. Suddenly, Chloe stood up. "You guys have fun. I'm leaving," she announced, leaving everyone staring after her in stunned silence. Outside, her driver asked where she wanted to go. Her head was spinning from the brandy, and the thought of the empty townhouse was unappealing. "Take me to the office," she said. "Ms. Vanderbilt? What are you doing here?" It was 10 at night, and her assistant was just packing up to leave when Chloe stepped out of the elevator. The look of surprise on her assistant's face only made Chloe's mood worse. Usually at this hour, I'd be nagging her to go to bed. She'd complain, but she'd always listen in the end. "Are you heading home?" Chloe asked. "Yes, ma'am. Is there anything else you need?" Chloe was about to say no, but then a sharp pain twisted in her stomach. She hadn't eaten all afternoon. Her face paled. "Actually, yes. Go get me some soup." She paused. "From the best place you can find." The assistant was efficient. 20 minutes later, an elegantly packaged container of soup was on Chloe's desk. But when she opened it, she frowned. "Why is it seafood chowder?" Her assistant looked confused. "It's their most famous dish, ma'am." "I thought." "Never mind. You can go." The chowder smelled delicious, rich with the sweet aroma of fresh seafood. But after just a few spoonfuls, she pushed it away, her appetite gone. She found herself thinking about the simple porridge I used to make. Damn it, what was wrong with her? Back at the apartment, I hit the light switch by the door, and the room was instantly filled with light and the sound of heavy breathing. Liam was on the couch, tangled up with a young woman. Liam blinked in the sudden brightness, momentarily confused. He gently pushed the woman away as she leaned in for another kiss. "Ethan, you're back." "Ahem. Yeah. You two might want to get dressed." My mouth twitched. I immediately turned my back to give them some privacy. I sighed. I couldn't stay here long-term. Even with the best of friends, everyone needs their own space. Liam, completely unfazed, just grinned and patted the woman's cheek. "Be a doll and wait for me in the bedroom." Then he turned to me, his expression growing serious when he saw my face. "Where have you been? Your eyes are all red. Did you go see Chloe?" I poured myself a glass of water. "I went to the hospital," I said, my voice distant. to see Professor Grant. We had both been her students at Columbia. Liam was still in our old department's group chat, so he'd probably heard she was sick. He glanced at me, started to say something, then stopped. He knew better than anyone that I had been Professor Grant's star pupil. He'd seen her give me extra attention, loop me into her research projects, even co-author papers with me when I was just an undergrad. She wasn't even my official advisor, but she invested in me. If I had followed the path she laid out for me, I would have been one of the youngest people in the country with a PhD in bioinformatics. To this day, Liam still couldn't understand why I'd thrown it all away. Thinking about how much she'd believed in me, I felt a pang of regret. Maybe when things come too easily, you don't know how to value them. I heard it was pretty serious. How is she recovering from the surgery? Liam asked. I just shook my head. He gave an exasperated laugh. What kind of hospital visit was that? You don't even know how she's doing. I couldn't bring myself to go in. You're kidding me. Seeing the look on my face, Liam couldn't stop himself. You know what? You deserve to feel like crap. I remained silent. He saw my stubborn silence, and then it clicked. The food I'd left with that morning had been for her. So what's the plan? Just lurk outside her door forever? You've never been a coward, Ethan. Don't start now. He was right. I had to face her eventually. I looked up at him. Liam, will you come with me to see her? I need to properly apologize for being such an impulsive, irrational idiot. I owe her that. Liam nearly choked on his beer. Oh no. No way, man, he said, coughing. You know she's the only professor who ever failed me. I still get nervous just thinking about her. Besides, she probably doesn't even remember who I am. I'd be no help at all. Seeing the genuine fear in his eyes, I didn't push it. However, Liam said, a sly look in his eye, I do know the perfect person to go with you. You remember my cousin, right? Dr. Amelia Reed. I took a sip of water and nodded. Of course. Amelia Reed, one of the youngest lead researchers in the country. She'd started in biology, where everyone called her a prodigy. Then, out of nowhere, she'd switched to physics, a move that caused a huge stir in the academic world. Now, she was a major figure in international physics. We'd been at Columbia at the same time, though she was a few years ahead of me. I'd heard stories about her from the day I set foot on campus. I only found out she was Liam's cousin after we became friends. She'd been working at a research institute in Europe for years and had only moved back to the States 3 months ago. My cousin was just asking me about Professor Grant the other day, Liam said. She's been too swamped to visit, so it's perfect. You two can go together. The more he thought about it, the more perfect it seemed. He called her right then and there. I could hear a lot of noise in the background. She was clearly busy. The call lasted less than a minute. It's all set, Liam announced, hanging up. She'll meet you tomorrow, 2 o'clock at the River Cafe. The next day, when I arrived at the restaurant, Dr. Reed was already there. She was sitting by the window, sipping a coffee, her expression composed and serious. She wore a simple white blouse, black trousers, and a pair of delicate gold-rimmed glasses. The sunlight caught her profile, making her look like a figure in a painting. I, on the other hand, was in a t-shirt and jeans, feeling decidedly underdressed. Sensing my presence, she turned. Please sit. Can I get you something to drink? Her voice was cool and crisp, with a pleasant, low timbre. I snapped out of my daze and pulled out the chair opposite her. Sorry to keep you waiting. She adjusted her glasses. Not at all. I was only 5 minutes early. I have to get back to the lab to run some data, so I only have about half an hour. She got straight to the point. Regarding Professor Grant, what exactly do you need from me? I appreciated her directness. She's been discharged from the hospital, I began, but I don't have her home address. I was hoping you might be willing to take me with you when you visit. And if it's not too much to ask, I added, hesitating slightly, if she gets angry, maybe you could help mediate? It's not good for her health to get too worked up. At this, the corner of her mouth twitched in what might have been a smile. I know you're busy, so whenever works for you is fine, I finished. She nodded. All right, the day after tomorrow. Thank you, I said. Then, holding my glass, I asked, why are you willing to help me? Her dark eyes met mine. After a long pause, just as I thought she wouldn't answer, she spoke. Because you're Ethan Miller. She took a sip of her coffee. Professor Grant once told me she has 3 great regrets in her life. The first is that life is too short for all the research she wants to do. The second is that she never had children. And the third, she said, looking right at me, is you. I froze, my nails digging into my palms. Her gaze was sharp, analytical, sizing me up before her expression became neutral again. This was the first time we'd met, but clearly not the first time she'd heard my name. She was trying to figure out what was so special about the student Professor Grant called her greatest regret. My throat felt tight. I dropped my gaze, imagining the look of disappointment in my professor's eyes whenever she spoke my name. Amelia jotted something down on a napkin. This is my number. Elsewhere in that same restaurant, Chloe was on her blind date. The man across from her was impeccably dressed and wouldn't stop talking. Chloe, your mother mentioned you have a sensitive stomach. My family has an excellent gastroenterologist. I could set up an appointment for you. Chloe fiddled with her phone, murmuring a response every now and then. Her mother had arranged this date, and she was just trying to get through it without making a scene. She had zero interest in what the man was saying. Her eyes wandered around the restaurant, and then, suddenly, they stopped. She sat bolt upright. There, 4 or 5 tables away, was me, sitting across from a woman. She was too far away to hear what we were saying, but she could clearly see the smile on my face. Suddenly, the man's droning voice became unbearable, grating on her already frayed nerves. Chloe looked away with a sneer. I should be going, Amelia said. Her schedule was tight. 30 minutes was all she could spare. I nodded in understanding. As we stepped out onto the curb, she said, my car is here. Okay, I replied. I'll see you the day after tomorrow. I watched her car pull away before turning to leave. When I did, I found myself looking directly into a pair of cold, mocking eyes. Found a replacement already? It was Chloe. As she got closer, she realized I looked different. My hair was shorter, my clothes simpler. My eyes seemed brighter, with none of the dullness of a man nursing a broken heart. If it was an act, she had to admit it was a convincing one. So convincing, in fact, that it infuriated her. I frowned. I knew that look. It was the storm before the hurricane. She let out a short, sharp laugh. Your standards have certainly dropped. After all those years with me, you'd think you'd have better taste. Don't just settle for anyone. It makes me look bad. Making her look bad? The thought was so absurd I almost laughed, but there was no humor in it, only a deep, weary sadness. Chloe didn't notice. She was too consumed by the image of me smiling at someone else. I have to go, I said, cutting her off. Go where? She scoffed. To Liam's apartment? That's the only place you have. I'll give you this, though you had the guts to take the money this time. So this is the game you want to play. She thought this was all just a game. I took a slow breath, steadying myself. First, I said, my voice even, Dr. Reed and I are just friends. Not that it's any of your business. We are broken up. What you think is your problem, not mine. Just then, my Uber pulled up. I opened the door and got in. Let's go, please. Chloe let out another derisive laugh. You really think you're something now, don't you? I had tried a similar bluff during a fight 3 months ago, but this was different. This time, he'd flaunted another woman right in her face. How dare he? Suddenly, a hand landed on her arm. It was her date leaning in close. Chloe, you just disappeared. She frowned in annoyance, but instead of pushing him away, she looped her arm through his. If he could find another woman, so could she. From the back of the Uber, I watched them in the side mirror, arm in arm. A bitter, self-deprecating smile touched my lips. So it wasn't just the college kid. 6 years. All for nothing. In the rearview mirror, I saw Chloe's expression change. She coldly shook off the man's arm and stalked away without a backward glance. The moment Chloe got in her car, she called her brother. Sis, aren't you supposed to be on a date? Did you tell Ethan I was at the River Cafe today? She demanded, her voice tight with anger. Can't you be a little smarter? Why are you telling an outsider my business? You were supposed to help me keep this quiet, not leak it to him so he could show up with some woman just to spite me. Use your head for once. Startled by her shouting, Chris stammered, What are you talking about? I never. He stared at the phone in his hand after she hung up on him, completely bewildered. What did I even do? Before he could dwell on it, the family butler approached him with a list. Mr. Vanderbilt, will these gifts be sufficient? Chris scanned the list of expensive gifts and nodded in satisfaction. These are for Professor Grant. Make sure everything is perfect. There can be no mistakes, understand? After leaving the cafe, I found a small apartment to rent near the Columbia campus. I let Liam know I was moving out and took my single suitcase to my new place. It was 6 in the evening by the time I finished cleaning. As I was taking out the trash, the door to the apartment next to mine opened. We both froze. You live here? We asked at the same time. Dr. Amelia Reed glanced down, then looked past me at my open door. So you're the one who moved in today. I had no idea, I said with a small laugh. Looks like we're neighbors. Her eyes flickered to the trash bag in my hand. I'm heading down anyway. I can take that for you. I didn't object. We were neighbors now. This was just what neighbors did. After she left, I made myself some simple soup and a sandwich. On an impulse, I packed up an extra portion of both. Amelia was in her study, reviewing experimental data for a paper, when she heard a knock. She opened the door to find me standing there. "Thanks for taking out my trash," I said. "I made some dinner. It's nothing fancy, but I made extra if you'd like some." She seemed surprised for a moment, but she accepted the container with a quiet, "Thank you." Back in her study, she returned to her work, recalibrating datasets against previous experimental results. It was 8 o'clock by the time she finished. Her stomach was empty, and she automatically reached for her phone to order delivery. Then her eyes fell on the container I'd given her. She opened it to find it was insulated. The sandwich and soup were still warm. She took a bite of the sandwich and was surprised. The smoky bacon, the crisp lettuce, and a perfectly cooked egg in the middle. It was simple, fresh, and delicious. Her appetite, absent moments before, returned with a vengeance. After the sandwich, she tried the soup. The simple, delicate flavor was better than any takeout she'd ever had. After a few spoonfuls, a pleasant warmth spread through her stomach. Amelia's eyebrows rose in a clear expression of pleasure. Anyone who knew her would recognize it as a sign of genuine enjoyment. In minutes, both the soup and the sandwich were gone. At 10, as Amelia was heading home after her nightly run, she ran into me. I changed into sweats and was out for a walk. "You run at night?" we both asked simultaneously. I nodded, just getting some air and grabbing a package. I slowed my pace to match hers. "Thank you for dinner," she said. "It was very good. You've helped me out twice now, so I should be thanking you," I replied. "I checked with one of her postdocs," Amelia said. "Professor Grant is resting at home. I was planning on going to see her tomorrow morning around 10. Does that work for you? Tomorrow at 10? The thought of seeing her after 6 years made my stomach clench with nerves. "Is that a problem?" she asked. "No, no problem at all." She glanced at my profile, and though she must have sensed my anxiety, she didn't press. She wasn't the type to pry. We said goodnight at our doors and went inside. I showered absent-mindedly and then lay in bed, trying to will myself to sleep. A light rain started falling around midnight. I tossed and turned all night. I was up early. After a quick breakfast, I just waited. The knock on my door came at 10 o'clock sharp. I opened it immediately, already dressed and ready. Amelia paused for a second. "Okay, let's go." I felt much calmer than I had the night before. But when we pulled up in front of the professor's house, I gripped my seatbelt, stared at the gift basket at my feet, and felt a wave of cowardice wash over me. Amelia sensed my hesitation. "Are you getting out?" I bit my lip. "I think I need a minute." She studied my face for a moment, then nodded. "Okay, I'll go in first." I was grateful she didn't ask any questions. I watched her walk to the door, took a couple of deep breaths, then finally unbuckled my seatbelt and got out. I could hear the professor's voice from the porch, and my heart skipped a beat. I hurried to catch up to Amelia. "Professor Grant." "Amelia, what a surprise. What are you doing here?" Amelia went to her side, and they walked slowly into the living room together. "I just came to see how you were feeling. It was a minor thing, nothing for you all to fuss over," the professor said, patting her hand. "I'm perfectly fine, really." Amelia hesitated for a moment. "I actually brought someone with me today." "Who?" Professor Grant asked, puzzled. She followed Amelia's gaze to the doorway. I was standing there, my head bowed, feeling like a little kid who'd been sent to the principal's office. Her eyes widened, and she took an involuntary step forward. But the initial shock and flicker of pleasure in her expression quickly hardened into a cool, deliberate mask. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice flat. "Professor." I stammered, unsure what to say. "Who was it?" she said, her voice like ice. "Who told me they were throwing everything away for love? Why are you here now?" I pressed my lips together. "Professor, I'm sorry. I know I disappointed you. Is that all?" she asked, her expression unyielding. "And I was wrong," I admitted. I hesitated, then asked quietly, "Is it too late?" At last, she let out a long sigh, the hardness in her face softening. "Do you have any idea how long I've waited?" 6 years, Ethan. 6 whole years. Tears filled my eyes. I didn't know," I choked out. "You were waiting for me? As long as you've finally come to your senses." But she knew that realization must have come at a high price, and her expression filled with sympathy. A lump formed in my throat, and the tears I'd been holding back finally fell. "Professor." A gentle hand patted my shoulder. There, she said, her voice softening completely. "You're a grown man." Amelia had been watching silently from the side. As she saw us reconcile, she quietly slipped out of the room and onto the patio, giving us some space. Reunited after so long, she asked about what I was doing now, but she tactfully avoided any mention of my personal life. The fact that I had admitted I was wrong told her everything she needed to know about that part of my life. There was no need to rub salt in the wound. I've rented a place near campus, I told her. I've started studying for the GREs. I want to apply to your graduate program. Her eyes lit up, her face transformed by a look of pure joy. Really? Are you serious? She asked, making me confirm it twice. I nodded. I was too ashamed to meet her eyes. She had laid out the perfect path for me, and I had thrown it away. Good, she exclaimed. That's what you should have done years ago. Now don't you dare back out. I've been saving a spot for you all this time. I was stunned. I had suspected she might be holding a spot, but to have it confirmed was almost unbelievable. What had I ever done to deserve such faith? Professor, I don't even know if I'll get in. Don't get your hopes up. Nonsense, she retorted. If you want it, you'll get it. I know what you're capable of, unless you plan on failing on purpose just to mess with an old woman. Of course not, I said, half laughing, half crying. Well, it's getting late. You and Amelia. Where did Amelia go? I'm here, Professor, Amelia said, stepping back in from the patio. It's almost lunchtime. You two are staying. I'll cook myself. My face fell. Amelia's expression was equally alarmed. Professor, please, don't trouble yourself. I can cook, I said quickly. It wasn't that I was ungrateful, but I had seen her attempt to use a kitchen before. She coughed, a little embarrassed. Well, yes, I suppose since I'm still recovering, it's best if I don't overexert myself. I quickly found an apron and headed for the kitchen. Amelia rolled up her sleeves and followed. I'll help. Professor Grant watched us go, a knowing smile spreading across her face. I cooked a full lunch, keeping the flavors light and making all of the professor's favorite dishes. I can't believe you still remember, she said with a sigh of contentment. After the meal, I started clearing the table, and Amelia joined me in the kitchen to help with the dishes. Professor Grant leaned against the doorframe. So, Ethan, she began, how did you two meet? Amelia was her most brilliant protege, and I was her personal favorite. She'd wanted to introduce us for years. It was a funny twist of fate that we'd ended up meeting on our own. Just then, someone called from the front door. Professor Grant, you have a visitor. She went into the living room to see a young man getting to his feet. Professor, hello. I'm Chris Vanderbilt. I visited you in the hospital and asked about the graduate program. Professor Grant nodded. Yes, I remember. Please have a seat. Chris's smile widened. I heard you were recovering at home, so I brought you a few things. She glanced at the expensive, flashy gift baskets on the coffee table, and her smile faded. As I was mentioning last time, Chris began, about the spots in the graduate program, she cut him off. Thank you for the thought, but please, take these with you. As for the program, I accept students every year. It's very competitive. Admission is based on merit alone. Chris was taken aback. That wasn't what she'd said at the hospital. Then she had been encouraging, telling him to apply. Why the sudden change? Professor, Mr. Vanderbilt, I'm afraid I have other guests right now, so I can't talk any longer. My assistant will help you with these on your way out. It was a clear dismissal. Chris left, confused and dejected, and nearly collided with someone in the hallway. Ethan, he exclaimed in surprise. What are you doing here? I was wearing a simple t-shirt, a ridiculously floral apron, and holding a bag of trash. What a coincidence, I said, surprised to see him but smiling politely. I didn't dislike Chris. He had the typical arrogance of a rich kid, but he wasn't a bad person. Still, we were never going to be close friends like Liam and I were. You, he looked me up and down, taking in the apron and the trash bag. Are you working as a cleaner now? Didn't my sister give you any money? My God, that is so cheap. I can't believe her. He stormed off, already pulling out his phone. It wasn't that he felt sorry for me. He was just embarrassed. To him, his sister's behavior was tacky, like not leaving a tip at a fancy restaurant. He was mortified. Sis, I have to say something. He burst out the moment she answered the phone. I'm busy, Chris. I don't have time for this. Who's making a scene? You're the one being completely unreasonable. How could you be so cheap? Ethan cooked and cleaned for you for years, and you cut him off without a dime, forcing him to work as a cleaner? What will people say if they find out? Have you no shame? There was a pause on the other end of the line. What are you talking about, Ethan? A cleaner. Chris explained what he'd seen. You've really gone too far this time, Chloe. He was your lapdog for years. You can't just treat him like that. Chloe didn't hear the rest of what he said. The words just echoed in her head. Ethan, a cleaner, earning money. So he'd cashed the check, but he was too scared to actually spend it. Her expression was unreadable, a strange mix of emotions. He had seemed so decisive when he left, she'd almost thought he'd meant it. But it turned out he couldn't even survive without her. Chloe, snap out of it. It's your turn, a friend said, pointing to the dice in her hand. I'm done, Chloe said, grabbing her jacket and keys. But you're the one who called this get-together, her friend said, confused. Something came up, Chloe replied, already walking out the door. He must be ready to come begging now. She sat in her car, waiting. Her phone buzzed with work calls and emails, but not the one call she was waiting for. Finally, she gave up and drove to Liam's apartment herself. Chloe. She had just gotten out of her car when she heard her name. She turned to see Liam, his arm around a young woman, heading into the building. What do you want? Liam asked, his eyes wary. Where's Ethan? Why are you asking? I asked you where Ethan is, she repeated, her voice sharp with impatience. Chloe had never liked Liam. She thought he was a reckless player and had warned me to stay away from him. The fact that I had ignored her advice on this one thing only made her dislike him more. Liam wasn't about to indulge her. Let's get something straight. You two are broken up. You have no right to come here demanding to know where he is. Chloe laughed coldly. Please, how many times have we broken up? You couldn't even count them. So don't bother trying to stop me. It's pointless. He'll come crawling back eventually, he always does. Her sheer arrogance made Liam laugh in disbelief. In your eyes, he's nothing more than a dog you can kick around, isn't he? Someone you can have when you want and discard when you're bored? Someone not even worth a second thought. I'm done talking to you, Chloe snapped. If you won't tell me, I'll find him myself. The young woman with Liam stepped forward. Ma'am, that would be trespassing. Chloe didn't even look at her. Her eyes were fixed on Liam as she gave a slow, cold nod. I'll remember this. But it doesn't matter. You can't stop him. He'll come back to me eventually, like a puppy who's been called home. With that, she got in her car and sped off. Liam was left fuming on the sidewalk. Unbelievable. What a horrible, toxic person. I can't stand her. In the car, her phone rang. Still furious, she answered with a clipped, "What, babe?" It was Caleb, his voice bright and cheerful. I found this amazing new crab place. They're supposed to be incredible. Tomorrow's Saturday. We should go. He knew she loved seafood. They hadn't spoken since the night before, and a knot of anxiety was tightening in his stomach. Usually, Chloe was the one to make plans. He would play a little hard to get, then agree. But lately, she'd been distant. Her texts were short, and sometimes she didn't reply at all, just saying she was busy. Caleb clutched his phone, his knuckles white. I told you I'm busy, Chloe said, and hung up. He stared at the dead screen, the panic rising in his chest again. No. He had worked too hard to become Chloe Vanderbilt's official boyfriend. He couldn't give up now. As the sun began to set, Amelia and I said our goodbyes to Professor Grant. The day went by so quickly, she said, looking out at the evening sky. Drive safely. And you, she said, her eyes finding mine. You come visit me more often, you hear? I nodded eagerly. I will. Oh, and on the table, she added, there are some papers and books. They're yours. From before. Take them with you. My focus had been on bioinformatics, specifically algorithmic modeling. The paper I'd been planning to submit for publication before I graduated was only half finished. She had kept it all these years. My voice caught in my throat. Professor, all right, that's enough. Go on, get out of here, she said, shooing us away. And don't forget your container. It's been washed. I froze. Honestly, she grumbled playfully, coming all the way to my hospital room and not even stepping inside, just leaving food. I almost ate myself sick. Finally clicked. It won't happen again, I promised. When we got back to the Columbia campus, I had Amelia drop me off at the main gate and decided to walk the rest of the way. Meanwhile, across town, Chloe pulled up to her townhouse and her heart leaped when she saw a figure sitting on her front steps. But as she got closer, her heart sank again. Chloe, you're back. Caleb scrambled to his feet, a relieved smile on his face. What are you doing here? Waiting for you, he said. You said you were busy earlier, so I figured I'd wait until you were done with work. I didn't interrupt anything, did I? He looked at her, his expression anxious. No, she said slowly. Oh, good. The smile returned to his face, but then it faltered. Chloe, he said, looking down shyly, I'm really hungry. Come on, I'll take you to dinner. Okay, he beamed. They went to an Italian restaurant. Chloe barely touched her food, but Caleb ate with gusto. He seemed to sense her bad mood and kept his chatter to a minimum. Are you full? She asked when he was done. He nodded eagerly. Okay, let's get you back to campus. His dorm was only a 10-minute drive away. Caleb paused with his hand on the door handle. Aren't you going to walk me in? Chloe considered for a second, then nodded. Sure. It was the time of evening when classes were letting out, and the area around the main gate was crowded with students. Caleb was well known on campus, and his appearance with a beautiful, obviously wealthy older woman on his arm drew more than a few curious stares. Caleb seemed oblivious to the whispers around them. "I should introduce you to my roommates sometime," he said to Chloe. "They're dying to meet you." In truth, the entire campus was dying to get a look at his mysterious new girlfriend. Before, when I was still in the picture, Caleb wouldn't have dared to be so public with her. But things were different now. She had told him herself that she wanted to be with him. Chloe didn't respond. She had no interest in meeting his roommates. But Caleb didn't seem to notice her indifference. "It's so great," he said, smiling happily. "Every moment I'm with you is perfect." Then he turned and, taking her by surprise, kissed her. A collective gasp went through the crowd of students. "Wow, so the rumors are true. He really does have a girlfriend. Oh my God, it's like something out of a movie. He's so handsome, and she's gorgeous. They look perfect together. I totally ship them," and I was standing right there at the back of the crowd. I hadn't meant to watch, but the commotion had drawn my attention as I was walking past. What a coincidence. Chloe snapped back to the present, looking at the adoring young man in front of her. But suddenly, another image flashed in her mind. A different young man, his eyes just as bright, looking at her on the day of his college graduation. "Chloe," he had said, his face glowing, "I'm so happy when I'm with you." The memory, one she thought she had buried long ago, surfaced without warning, striking her with the force of a physical blow. She instinctively took a step back, putting space between herself and Caleb. "Chloe?" he asked, confused. "It's late," she said. "You should go inside." "No," he said, shaking his head and leaning in to kiss her again. "I want to stay with you." But before he could, she took control, wrapping her arms around his waist and kissing him with a fierce intensity that surprised them both. The crowd of students erupted in cheers. "Whoa, she's intense. They must be crazy about each other." I watched the whole scene unfold, my knuckles white as I gripped the books in my hand. But my face was a mask of calm, almost numb. "I'll get used to it," I told myself. Quitting a 6-year habit is bound to have withdrawal symptoms. I didn't linger. I turned and walked away. I had studying to do. In the middle of the crowd, Chloe thought she felt something. She glanced over her shoulder and saw a vaguely familiar figure disappearing into the night. But then Caleb's hand found hers, his fingers lacing through hers. "What are you looking at?" he asked. Chloe looked away. "Nothing." After walking him to the dorm entrance, she turned to leave, but he held onto her hand, his eyes pleading. "It's still early. Can't you stay a little longer?" She gave him another quick kiss. "I have to go. I'll pick you up this weekend." She glanced at her watch. He nodded obediently. "Okay, get some rest. I'll bring you some of that special porridge tomorrow." Chloe didn't answer. For a moment, she seemed a million miles away. Back in my apartment, my laptop was open, but my fingers had slowed on the keyboard. The image of her kissing him flashed in my mind. I pressed my lips together, stood up, and went to the bathroom. I splashed my face with cold water 3 times until my head cleared. The past was the past. There was no point dwelling on it. I needed to focus on my exams. Back at my desk, I opened the books Professor Grant had given me. One was a textbook on bioinformatics. The other was a collection of her own research notes and annotations. There was also a flash drive containing the half-finished research paper I'd abandoned my senior year. I had started it with the intention of going to grad school, but then life happened. Still, I'd never completely abandoned it. For the past 6 years, I had done only 2 things: take care of Chloe, and secretly, meticulously continue to work on this paper. The version on the flash drive was only what I'd completed as an undergrad. I pulled up the rest of it on my laptop and merged the 2 files. In that moment, seeing the completed work, it felt like the lost, confused person I had been for 6 years finally reconnected with the person I was meant to be. I felt whole again. I worked on it until dawn. Looking at the final draft, I decided to take a leap of faith. I submitted it to Science, one of the top peer-reviewed academic journals in the world. I had no idea if it would even get past the first round of reviews. Who was I, after all? But I had to try. Just before the sun came up, I shut down my laptop and got a few hours of sleep. At 8, I had a quick breakfast, gathered my study materials, and headed to the library. I ran into Amelia in the hallway. She was just getting home. It was raining, and her closed umbrella was still dripping onto the floor. "Morning," she said, her eyes tired. "Don't tell me you pulled an all-nighter." "Had to run some data at the lab," she explained. "Just came back to grab something before I head back." "Here," I said, handing her a thermos of hot milk I'd prepared. "This will warm you up." "Thank you," she said, taking it. "You should change your shirt," I added. pointing to a damp spot on her shoulder where the rain had soaked through. She glanced down, surprised. "Well, I'm heading out," I said with a smile and went downstairs. The library was already filling up, though it wasn't even 9. I was folding up my wet umbrella when I heard a familiar voice. "Ethan," it was Chris. He was on campus to meet with someone in the admissions office about his application. He'd been caught in the rain and had ducked under the library's awning to wait it out. "What are you doing at the library? Another part-time job? You must be really strapped for cash." "Don't worry, I talked to my sister. I told her to be more generous. You should quit these little jobs and focus on taking care of her. I heard her stomach was bothering her again yesterday." "Chris, who are you talking to?" a woman's voice interrupted. A tall, impeccably dressed woman was walking toward us. Mrs. Vanderbilt walked over to her son's side. Her eyes landed on me, and her already disapproving expression soured further with open disgust. She raked her eyes over my simple clothes, her disdain palpable. In her world, I was utterly unpresentable. Her gaze flickered from the library entrance to the textbooks in my hand, and a cynical understanding dawned in her eyes. "Mr. Miller," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. What a coincidence. The way she stressed the word made her meaning perfectly clear. She thought I had orchestrated this entire meeting just to get on her good side. She sighed dramatically. "But as they say, you can't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. So please, spare me these little tricks in the future. I'm not falling for it. And since we've had this little run-in, let me make things perfectly clear. My Chloe is never going to marry you. However, considering you've spent years looking after her, we're prepared to be accommodating. After she marries someone suitable, we'll ensure there's still a place for you by her side. But don't you dare ask for anything more. Know your place, and this arrangement can last for a very long time. Do you understand?" It was a common arrangement in her world of high society marriages. As long as the official family line was secure, a wealthy woman could keep any number of amusements on the side. Her own mother wouldn't bat an eye. This was her formal offer, her promise that I could be Chloe's kept man. However, the scene of me bowing and scraping in gratitude that she'd clearly envisioned never materialized. Instead, I let out a cold laugh. "Mrs. Vanderbilt, you can save your charity for someone else. I'm not interested. And for the record, Chloe and I have broken up, so in the future, let's just pretend we don't know each other." In the past, for Chloe's sake, I had put up with her mother's endless condescension. She despised my lack of a graduate degree, my state school background, and the fact that I hadn't pursued a career after college. In short, I was completely unworthy of her precious daughter. Before, I might have tried to win her over, but now that I was done with Chloe, what power did her mother have over me? I stepped closer. "By the way, Mrs. Vanderbilt, a word of advice," I said with a thin smile. "You should be careful not to speak so harshly to people. One day, someone might just hit you. Also, the expression you were looking for is, a monkey in a suit. You should learn it." With that, I turned and walked into the library, leaving her frozen in place. "What did he just say?" she sputtered, her face a mask of disbelief. "How dare he speak to me like that? Who does he think he is?" Her furious grip on Chris's arm finally snapped him out of his stupor. "Mom," he mumbled. He said he and Sis broke up. Do you believe him? Then again, they had broken up so many times before, and it had never been real. After all, everyone knew I was crazy about Chloe, loyal as a dog that you couldn't chase away no matter how hard you tried. Chris pulled his arm free. "Mom, forget about him. We have that meeting with the dean, remember? If we don't leave now, we're going to be late." Mrs. Vanderbilt took a deep, shuddering breath, trying to quell her rage. "Let's go. That Ethan Miller is a nobody. I won't let him ruin my son's future." The library at Columbia was massive. It took me 2 circuits of the main reading room to find an empty seat, which happened to be right next to the bioinformatics section. As my eyes scanned the shelves, a name on the spine of a book on the top shelf caught my eye, Dr. Amelia Reed. Curious, I pulled it down. The cover was an image of a distant galaxy, which seemed fitting for the woman I was just getting to know. It was a collection of her published research notes on the structure and dynamics of protein molecules, a topic that sat at the crossroads of biology and physics. The afternoon flew by as I read through it. While my degree was in bioinformatics, I'd always had a knack for physics. At 1 o'clock, I finally closed the book, placed it back on the shelf, and realized I was starving. I left the library to grab a quick bite before heading back to my studies. I was halfway through a sandwich when Liam called. "Hey, what's up? Are you at your apartment?" he asked. "No, I'm at the library," I said, taking a sip of water. "Why?" "Because Chloe showed up here yesterday." He still sounded furious. The first thing out of her mouth was, "Where is he?" As if I'd tell her. You haven't run into her, have you? You finally escaped that toxic mess. Don't you dare go back. No, I haven't seen her, I said. Good, Liam said, relieved. Hey, listen, are you free tonight? I need a favor. Meanwhile, Chris's meeting with the dean had gone perfectly, and the gloom from his encounter with Professor Grant had completely vanished. Come on, Mom, let's go, he said. Mrs. Vanderbilt was still frowning in the direction of the library. You go ahead, she said. I have something else to take care of. She took out her phone and called for her other driver. Chris assumed she was off to one of her ladies' luncheons and thought nothing of it. But the moment Mrs. Vanderbilt got into her car, she gave the driver a single instruction. Take me to my daughter's office. Chloe had just gotten out of a meeting when her mother stormed into her office, a thunderous look on her face. A sense of dread washed over her. Mom, what are you doing here? What? Am I not allowed? Her mother sniffed, seating herself on the sofa. If you can't control your pet, I have no problem stepping in. Chloe, look at the attitude on that boy. This is your fault for spoiling him. Chloe's eyes narrowed. Ethan, what did he do? You have the nerve to ask? I ran into him at the Columbia Library. I said 2 words to him and he completely lost it. He called me harsh, implied I was an idiot. The boy has no manners whatsoever. Chloe frowned. You saw him at the library? Yes. Instead of being at home cooking and cleaning like he's supposed to, he's off at the library pretending to be an intellectual. Does he think that will impress me? He must be dreaming. And he had the audacity to claim you two were broken up, that from now on we should act like strangers. Is that any way to speak to your elders? Chloe's expression grew cold and distant. Suddenly, her mother asked, Did you two really break up? For some reason, Chloe heard herself reply, Of course not. Humph. I knew it, her mother said with satisfaction. A parasite like him would never let go of his meal ticket so easily. You know what happened. Now go home and put him back in his place. Chloe had heard enough. Mom, she interrupted. I have another meeting. I'll have my driver take you home. But I'm not finished. Seeing the thunderous look on her daughter's face, Mrs. Vanderbilt wisely decided to drop it. Fine, I'll go. But don't you let him get away with this. After her mother left, Chloe let out a long, frustrated sigh. She looked out at the setting sun and knew she didn't want to go home to the empty townhouse. Remembering Caleb's birthday was in a few days, she messaged Jessica and asked her to go shopping. Inside the Rolex boutique, a sales associate approached them with a smile. Can I help you ladies find something? I'm looking for a gift for my boyfriend, Chloe said. How about this model? It's one of our most popular styles for younger men. Jessica, who had no interest in watches, glanced at it briefly before looking around the store. A moment later, she called out excitedly, Ethan! Chloe froze for a second before slowly, casually, turning her head. Liam had a business dinner that night and was stuck at the office, so he'd asked me to pick up a watch he'd had custom ordered. I never expected to run into them here. I smiled at Jessica. Hey, long time no see. How have you been? Her eyes darted nervously toward Chloe. Since we're all here, maybe we could grab dinner? I can't tonight. I've got to run, but let's catch up soon, I said. I'd always gotten along with Jessica, so I made sure to decline with a warm smile. She noticed the distinctive box from the custom jeweler in my hand and knew I wasn't just making an excuse. She nodded, but before she could say anything else, I walked right past Chloe and out the door without a single glance in her direction. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 20 degrees. Jessica shot a nervous look at Chloe's stony face. Chloe, she said weakly, maybe he just didn't see you. That was the wrong thing to say. Chloe's expression grew even darker. Jessica coughed nervously and fell silent, thinking to herself, wow, Ethan's really sticking to his guns this time. Ma'am, the sales associate asked timidly, are you still interested in the watch? Chloe's head snapped up. Of course I'm buying it, she said, her voice like ice. In fact, show me your most expensive one. If he doesn't want it, I'm sure I can find someone who will. The party Liam had sent me to was at a private mansion in the Hollywood Hills. The party was already in full swing when I arrived. A few people recognized me, and I saw the subtle shift in their eyes. I had been Chloe's +1 at countless events like this over the years, a familiar, if insignificant, face. They didn't know my name, only that I was Chloe Vanderbilt's boyfriend, the boy toy who'd hit the jackpot. But the rumor mill had been buzzing about our breakup, and my showing up alone tonight would only confirm it. Hence the curious, pitying stares. I ignored them, found Liam, and gave him the watch. Hey, you should stay for a while, he said. The catering is amazing. I can't. You take it easy on the drinks tonight, all right? Will do, he said. He didn't push it. He knew what these people were like. and that it would only be awkward for me if I stayed. I'll have my assistant give you a ride. Thanks. As I turned to leave, I could already hear the whispers. Can you believe he had the nerve to show up? And did you see what he was wearing? My driver has better clothes than that. Everyone knows he was basically her live-in maid. Mr. Miller? Liam's assistant said, glancing at my face. I kept my expression perfectly neutral. Let's go. I knew exactly what they would say. I had prepared myself for moments like this when I decided to leave her. The car is this way, Mr. Miller, the assistant said. Just a moment, I'll pull it around. Okay. I stood outside the mansion, looking up at the sky. The sun was setting, and a gentle breeze was blowing. Just then, a low, slightly slurred female voice called my name. Ethan. I turned. It was Zara, a woman from Chloe's circle. Well, she said, swirling the wine in her glass, a look of pleasant surprise in her dark eyes. Long time no see. I didn't expect to find you here. How long has it been? The last time I saw you was at your college graduation. Pity Chloe threw me out before I could even give you the flowers I brought. I shifted uncomfortably. Zara and Chloe had pursued me at the same time back in college. Both were wealthy, beautiful, and relentlessly competitive. I have to go, I said, but Zara stepped in my way. Chloe kept you locked away like a prized possession all these years. It was impossible to even get a glimpse of you. I met her gaze, my polite smile gone. What's your point, Zara? You rejected both of us back then, she said, but you ended up with her. And why? Because she was more persistent, more relentless. But did you ever stop to think that maybe she only held on so tight because she couldn't stand the thought of losing to me? Her words hit me like a physical blow, tearing open a wound I thought was already healing. All this time, I had believed her pursuit was a sign of her deep feelings for me. But maybe it had all just been a game to her, a competition she was determined to win. Seeing the color drain from my face, a flicker of pity crossed her features. She reached out to touch my cheek, but I stepped back before she could make contact. Zara, please don't. She closed the distance between us again. Stop pretending. I know you and Chloe are over. And, I asked, forcing a smile. So be with me, Ethan, she said softly. I'll treat you better than she ever did. I'll cherish you. I'll give you anything you want, if you'll just be with me. 6 years had passed, but seeing me again made her heart race just as it had back then. She knew she had never gotten over me. I laughed, a hollow sound. Jump out of one fire and into another? No thank you, Zara. It was good to see you, but I think it's best we go our separate ways. With that, I turned and walked away. Chloe, Zara, I wanted nothing to do with either of them, and they would be wise to stay away from me. Zara watched my retreating back, a dark glint in her eye. Oh, Ethan, she murmured with a small, dangerous smile. You can try to run, but you can't hide. Unbeknownst to either of us, someone had been watching from a distance. Olivia looked down at the photo she just snapped, a satisfied smirk on her face. Just then, another friend stepped outside for some air and saw Olivia grinning at her phone like the cat that ate the canary. What are you smiling at? You look creepy. Olivia ignored the insult and proudly brandished her phone. Her friend's sharp eyes immediately recognized the people in the photo. Is that Ethan? Olivia said, her chin held high, clearly enjoying the chaos she was about to create. And Zara, I've already sent the picture to Chloe. They had all had a front row seat to the drama between the two women years ago. They still shook their heads, remembering how obsessed Chloe had been. Her friend's expression grew serious. They just broke up, and Zara is already making her move. And from the look of it, she said, her voice laced with meaning, Ethan might actually be serious about leaving this time. No way, Olivia scoffed. Ethan doesn't have the backbone. Just watch. He and Chloe will get back together. Or rather, he'll never be able to truly leave her. It's just a bit of fun, a little drama to watch. What's the harm? Her friend raised an eyebrow. Be careful you don't push it too far and ruin your friendship. I just took a picture, Olivia said defensively. Besides, you know how Chloe is. It's just an ex-boyfriend. It's not that deep, but you have to admit, it's a great photo, right? So much drama. Her friend's eyes lingered on my profile in the photo. You're right, she conceded. He's just an ex. It's only natural that other women would be interested. Liam's assistant dropped me off in front of my building, but instead of going inside, I headed to the small grocery store on the corner. 20 minutes later, my arms full of groceries, I was heading back to my apartment when I saw Amelia walking toward me. The sky was beginning to darken, but she was bathed in the warm, orange glow of the setting sun, which stretched her already long shadow behind her. Fancy meeting you here, I said with a smile. She looked up and adjusted her glasses. It seems we keep running into each other. Have you eaten? I was just about to make dinner, if you'd like to join me. She started to refuse out of habit, but then, remembering the meal I'd made before, she found herself nodding. It was the first time she'd been inside my apartment. My GRE prep books and practice tests were spread out all over the coffee table. A single glance was all it took for her to see that nearly all of my answers were correct. I poured her a glass of water. I bought way too much food. I was thinking of making hot pot. You missed one of the multiple choice questions, she said suddenly. I followed her gaze to the practice test I'd taken that morning and knew exactly which question she meant. You caught me, I said with a sheepish grin. It's one of the interdisciplinary questions on the physics of molecular dynamics. I haven't quite wrapped my head around it yet. The choice of the potential energy function is crucial for the accuracy of the dynamic calculation, she explained. Different potential functions will generate different potential energy surfaces for the system, which in turn will alter the calculated trajectories of both intermolecular and intramolecular motion. I was stunned for a moment, then her words sank in. A few seconds later, it all clicked into place. Of course, that's it, I exclaimed. She looked surprised by how quickly I'd grasped the concept. You can follow that? Most of it, I said honestly. I read your research notes at the library, so I have a basic understanding of the principles of molecular dynamics. A rare flush of embarrassment colored her cheeks. Those were my undergraduate notes, she said with a small cough. I'm sure they're full of typos. I couldn't help but laugh. To be honest, there were a few. You're very bright, she said, her tone serious again. You have a natural aptitude for this. The GREs won't be a problem for you. My smile widened. You think so? Well, I hope you're right, Dr. Reed. By the time Chloe and Jessica left the mall, it was already dark. Jessica glanced at the shopping bag Chloe was swinging carelessly in her hand. Inside was a watch that cost more than most people's houses. Who was she trying to impress? The boutique had offered to have it delivered by an armored car, but Chloe had insisted on taking it with her. Unfortunately for her, they hadn't run into me again. It's getting late, Jessica said. Let's get some dinner. Chloe just grunted in agreement. You pick. Jessica chose a popular nearby restaurant with private rooms. Chloe had been distracted and sullen ever since we'd left the jewelry store. The memory of me walking past her without so much as a glance, as if she were a complete stranger, kept replaying in her mind, and she couldn't shake the knot of anger in her chest. How dare he treat her like she was invisible? And if he'd moved out of Liam's place, why hadn't he come back home? How long was he going to drag out this little drama? Her thoughts were a tangled mess. She lit a cigarette and took a long, deep drag. Chloe had no appetite even after the food arrived. Still thinking about earlier? Jessica asked between bites. I'm sure Ethan's just still angry. Give him a few days to cool off. She paused, her chopsticks hovering over a dish. I mean, you did break up with him in front of all of us. That's a huge blow to his pride. Just wait for him to get over the initial anger, then you can sweet-talk him a little, and everything will be fine. Who said I was thinking about him? Chloe snapped. Just eat your food. Just then, her phone buzzed. She glanced down at the screen. A photo had just come through. In it, I was standing in profile, and a woman was reaching out a hand as if to caress my face. The photo was blurry, low resolution, but there was no mistaking it. It was me, and the woman was Zara. Chloe's eyes turned to ice. Chloe? What is it? Jessica asked, her heart sinking. Chloe slammed her phone down on the table. This is your idea of cooling off, she hissed, her voice dangerously low. He's gotten bold. He's actually crawling back to Zara. Jessica blinked, her eyes falling on the photo. She winced. Zara had always been audacious, but this was a new level. To make a move on me now while I was on the outs with Chloe was like pouring gasoline on a fire. The woman had a death wish. Chloe's lip curled into a cold sneer. His standards have certainly plummeted since he left me. To think he'd stoop to someone like Zara. Does he really think I care? I, for my part, was completely oblivious to all this drama, and frankly, I didn't care. My life had settled into a simple, quiet routine. My apartment, the library, and back again. It was monotonous, but it was also peaceful and fulfilling. I studied, I cooked good food for myself, and I often shared it with my neighbor, who was constantly pulling all-nighters at her lab. I had far less in terms of material possessions, but I had something much more valuable: freedom. Leaving the library one evening, I was contemplating my dinner plans when a familiar, elegant figure caught my eye. We have to stop meeting like this, neighbor, I said with a grin. We fell into step together, chatting easily as we walked toward our building. It was getting dark, and a cyclist swerved unsteadily down the sidewalk toward us. At that exact moment, Amelia's heel caught on an uneven paving stone, and she stumbled directly into the bike's path. Without thinking, I grabbed her wrist and pulled her back, my own body shielding hers as the bike careened past. "Are you okay?" I asked, my heart pounding. My fingers were wrapped tightly around her wrist, and through the thin fabric of her sleeve, I could feel the warmth of her skin. A faint blush rose on her cheeks. "I'm fine," she said, her voice a little breathless. "Thank you." We were standing very close, so close I could feel her breath on my cheek. I quickly took a step back, and she pulled her hand away. We walked the rest of the way in silence. At our doors, we said a quick goodnight and disappeared inside. But the memory of the last few moments replayed in my mind, the feeling of her warm skin under my fingers, the faint, minty scent of her breath. Sunday arrived. Caleb sat in the passenger seat of Chloe's car, chattering nonstop. Chloe kept her eyes on the road, offering only the occasional, non-committal grunt in response. While they were stopped at an intersection, Caleb's eyes were drawn to a massive billboard advertising the grand opening of a new theme park. His face lit up. "Babe," he said, tugging on her sleeve excitedly. "Can we go there today? Please." It was his birthday after all, so Chloe didn't really care where they went. As it happened, Liam and I were already at that very same theme park, having arrived first thing in the morning. We spent the morning riding every roller coaster in the park. After lunch, Liam insisted we go see the dolphin show. We navigated the massive crowds and made our way to the aquatic stadium. The air-conditioned stadium was a welcome relief from the oppressive summer heat. I wasn't particularly interested in the show, but Liam had always loved dolphins. Half an hour later, the show was over, and I headed to the restroom. As I rounded the corner, I saw Caleb standing at the sinks. I paused for a fraction of a second before walking past him without a word and heading for a stall. When I came out, he was still there, clearly waiting for me. I ignored him and focused on washing my hands. The only sound was the running water, but the silence was thick with tension. I glanced up at the mirror and my eyes met his. I looked away immediately, treating him like a stranger, but he just smiled. He casually pushed back his sleeve, revealing a sliver of an expensive-looking watch. "Ethan," he said, "fancy meeting you here." I didn't say anything. He didn't seem to mind. "How have you been?" he asked. I gave a small, non-committal smile. "Not bad." His eyes narrowed, trying to gauge if I was putting on a brave face. After a moment, he smirked. "Really? I imagine it must be tough, having to downgrade from Chloe's townhouse." "You don't need to worry about me," I said evenly. "Actually, I should thank you," he continued, his voice smug. "If you hadn't stepped aside, I might never have gotten the chance to have Chloe all to myself." His words didn't affect me at all. In fact, I found them almost funny. Here was this kid, proudly showing off the treasure he'd found in the wreckage of my old life, completely unaware that I had already moved on to discover a whole new universe. I calmly dried my hands, my eyes falling on the brand new Rolex on his wrist, a gift from Chloe, no doubt. A genuine, but distant, smile touched my lips. "You're welcome," I said. "I hope you two will be very happy together." Without waiting to see his shocked reaction, I turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd to rejoin Liam. His childish provocations couldn't touch me. My world no longer revolved around Chloe Vanderbilt. In the weeks that followed, I threw myself completely into my studies. My days were spent at the library, and my evenings were often spent in deep academic discussion with Amelia. Her physicist's mind brought a whole new perspective to my work in bioinformatics, helping me refine my algorithmic models in ways I'd never considered. We would often debate a single equation late into the night, only to break into shared, triumphant smiles when the solution finally clicked into place. It was a meeting of the minds, a kind of intellectual intimacy I had never experienced in my 6 years with Chloe. The turning point came on an otherwise ordinary morning, in the form of an email from the editorial board of science. "Dear Mr. Miller," it read, "we are pleased to inform you that your paper, a novel deep learning-based algorithm for protein structure prediction, has passed final peer review and has been accepted for publication in our upcoming issue." My hand on the mouse trembled. 6 years of frustration, of feeling like I'd wasted my potential, all the sleepless nights I'd spent studying and writing, it had all been worth it. I didn't shout or cheer. I just let out a long, slow breath. A weight I hadn't even realized I was carrying finally lifted from my shoulders. The first person I told was Amelia. When she read the email, her usually calm, serious eyes lit up with a brilliant fire. She seemed even more excited than I was. She didn't congratulate me. She just looked at me, her expression earnest, and said, "I knew it, Ethan. This is where you belong." The paper's publication sent shockwaves through the academic community. The day the advance copy of the journal arrived, Professor Grant was so emotional she called her colleague, Professor Morgan, 3 times, her voice thick with tears. "Samuel, did you see it? Our Ethan, he's back. He's come back a king." Columbia's Board of Trustees held an emergency meeting. Professor Morgan himself called me, offering me a position as a distinguished visiting professor, complete with my own lab and research funding. Offers from other top universities and major tech companies started pouring in. Overnight, the name Ethan Miller went from being synonymous with Chloe Vanderbilt's boy toy to being the name of the academic world's newest rising star, someone the people in her circle would now have to look up to. When the news finally reached Chloe's social circle, they were stunned into silence. Jessica saw the official announcement on Columbia's alumni page and sent the link to Chloe in disbelief. "Chloe," she wrote, is this the same Ethan?" Chloe clicked the link. The headline and the accompanying photo felt like a physical blow. It was me, standing at a podium in a lecture hall, wearing a simple white shirt. There was a confidence in my eyes, a light she had never seen before. All the things she took pride in, her money, her social standing, seemed pathetic and insignificant next to titles like First Author, Science, and Youngest Distinguished Professor in Columbia's history. For the first time in her life, she felt a deep, gut-wrenching panic. The man she thought would always be trailing behind her, the one who would come running back at the slightest crook of her finger, had ascended to a place she could never reach. She started calling me over and over, but my phone was always off. She started waiting outside my apartment building, only to see me returning with Amelia, deep in a conversation she couldn't understand, a seamless back and forth that left no room for anyone else. Finally, one evening, she managed to corner me as I was leaving my lab. "Ethan," her voice was hoarse and her eyes were red. All of her usual arrogance was gone. "We need to talk." I stopped and looked at her, my expression calm, as if I were looking at an old acquaintance I hadn't seen in years. "Miss Vanderbilt," I said politely, "can I help you?" The formal address made her flinch. She stepped forward and reached for my hand. "Don't," she pleaded. "Don't be like this. I know I was wrong. I never should have been with Caleb. I shouldn't have humiliated you in front of our friends. Please come back. The townhouse is still yours. I'll give you anything you want. We can go back to the way things were." "Go back?" I asked with a soft, humorless laugh. "There's no going back, Chloe. You never understood what I wanted. You thought I wanted your money, your townhouse, your charity. You were wrong. Then what do you want?" she demanded desperately, as if her life depended on it. "Tell me, and I'll give it to you." "What I want," I said, my eyes shifting past her to Amelia, who was walking toward us, my expression softening, "is a partner. Someone who can stand beside me and look up at the same sky. Someone who understands my dreams and wants to build them with me. My partner in every sense of the word." Amelia reached my side and slipped her arm through mine, giving me a warm smile before turning her polite, but firm, gaze on Chloe. Chloe's eyes followed my gaze, and as she took in the easy, unspoken intimacy between Amelia and me, something inside her seemed to break. All of her pride, all of her carefully constructed defenses, crumbled. She had lost. Everything she had used to define her own worth was meaningless in the face of a connection like ours. "So the money," she whispered, more to herself than to me. "You never cared about the money, did you?" "I donated it," I said quietly, "to Columbia, in both of our names. It's funding a new scholarship for young scientists in the biology department. Consider it a respectable end to our rather ridiculous 6 years," I said. "I hope you find what you're looking for one day, Miss Vanderbilt." Then I squeezed Amelia's hand, and we walked away, and I didn't look back. A year later, on a crisp autumn day, Amelia and I were married in the main hall at Columbia. It wasn't a lavish affair, just a simple, heartfelt ceremony surrounded by our family, our friends, and the titans of the academic world who had become our mentors. Professor Grant, looking healthier and happier than I'd seen her in years, officiated. Her hands trembled as she read from her notes, her voice thick with pride. "I once thought I had lost my most gifted student," she said. "But today, I see a man who has not only reclaimed his own brilliant future, but has found a soulmate to share it with. Ethan, Amelia, you are the greatest gift to each other." As we exchanged rings, I looked into Amelia's smiling eyes. "Thank you," I whispered, "for helping me become the man I was always supposed to be." She squeezed my hand. "And you, me," she whispered back. Outside, parked in a discreet corner, was a black Bentley. Chloe sat inside, watching from a distance as the happy couple emerged from the hall to a shower of applause. The man, handsome and confident in his tuxedo. The woman, radiant and elegant in a simple, timeless gown. They looked so right together, as if they were the center of the universe. Her mind flashed back 6 years, to a young man in a graduation gown, his eyes shining with love for her. "Chloe," he'd said, "I'm so happy when I'm with you." And then she remembered the day they broke up, the bitter, broken smile she'd seen on his face in the reflection of a mirror. Pathetic, she whispered, looking at her own reflection in the car window, her makeup perfect, her expression empty. A single tear traced a path down her cheek. What a pathetic way to live. She started the engine and drove away, leaving behind a world that was no longer hers.